When was the last time you ordered clothes online and got to try them on before paying for them? Never, right? Well, that's exactly what jackthreads.com does. You can try on anything at home for free, ladies and gentlemen. Then you only pay for what you keep. Whether it's a big name brand or the Jack Threads in-house line, you can be sure you are 100% in love with the items you ordered before spending a cent. Real quick, clear your head. Who's the most fashionable person on Kinda Funny? That's right. No, not you, Kevin. It's clearly Tim Gettys. Tim's using the service. He's like, don't say no, Kevin. Tim, Tim orders jackets and stuff all the time offline, and he looks really good. Kevin, you wear free clothes. Choose anything you want, though, from jackthreads.com, and you can try it on at home for free. You'll have 7 days to decide if it's working for you. Jack Threads gives you everything you need to send the things back, packing tape, and prepaid shipping labels, ladies and gentlemen. So go to jackthreads.com and enter the code GREGGY when you submit your tryout for 20% off anything you keep. That's jackthreads.com, code GREGGY to save 20% on anything you keep. Never buy before you try ever again. Kevin, I've read a lot of ads. That's a really good sign-off line. Nick, what's your topic?
I want to talk about the decline of Hollywood and the rise of Chinese cinema.
Okay.
This is something that's been happening for a very, very long time, and there's a few articles that have come out in the last few months that have kind of piqued my curiosity and my interest in this whole topic, largely because so much of my own personal upbringing, my childhood, my identity is tied largely to Hollywood filmmaking, and now it seems like we are quickly becoming second in that race. And let me open up a few. Let me hit you with a couple facts first, so we can talk about this, because I want to get your guys' perspective on some of these things.
I love a good Nick fact.
I'm trying to pull the Colin out.
You want the glasses? You got to put the glasses.
Can I put the glasses on?
Yeah, put the glasses on the bridge of your nose.
Okay.
Say 6 in one, half dozen in the other, multiple times during this.
6 in one, half dozen in the other.
Right.
Do you have a pen? Can you draw a snake on your arm?
Pejorative.
What else? No, he says oh God, I'll think of it later. It'll come out. So just kind of to catch everyone up to speed, and I don't want to have I'm not going to expect you guys to memorize these facts or be able to regurgitate them back to me, but I do want to talk about the spirit of this. Obviously, Hollywood movies have traditionally been a huge export for the United States, both culturally and economically, right? We've, up until this point, been, our box offices here have been basically number one in the world. Now that's quickly changing. They're forecasting by 2018 that the Chinese box offices will be the number one, making America basically number two, second fiddle. China is currently offering subsidies. There's a company called the Wanda Group that's offering a huge subsidy of $750 million. Film fund of $750 million and 40% subsidy. So they're actually giving you back 40% of the money, essentially, that you would be spending to produce a movie in their country. So that's a pretty big incentive to go over there and use their facilities and produce a movie there. Now, obviously, when you're producing something in China or something that's going to go in, historically, there's only been about 34 movies a year max, foreign movies that have been allowed inside China, because obviously it's still run by the Chinese Communist Party. And they're not... they're pretty harsh with what they do allow as far as their people to say and do. And then, of course, if you want to bring something that's pretty controversial from the United States in, good luck with that. But now they just released, there was another article that came out, and the reason that this kind of spurred my thought process was that there was another article that came out that basically said China passes law to ensure films serve the people and socialism. And that goes on to say things like it forbids content that stirs up opposition to the law or constitution, harms national unity, sovereignty, or territorial integrity, exposes national secrets, harms Chinese security, dignity, honor, or interests, or spreads terrorism or extremism. Now, keeping that thought in mind, a lot of the money for Hollywood films is currently coming from China. So it begs the question, if they're able to set the tone for it, where is that going to leave Hollywood blockbusters in, say, 5 to 10 to 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Like if they had creative control or creative say.
Well, they're having
movies.
creative say, right? So there's a lot of small stories, but most notably one of the biggest stories is that obviously Transformers 4 was the highest grossing film in China. To date, I think it beat Avatar. And the reason it was high grossing was because they agreed to shoot a lot of it in China. They agreed to use Chinese actors, Chinese locations, Chinese businesses. So even going as far as like, bank ATMs they go to that are supposed to be in the middle of Texas is a Chinese bank. And in lieu of, or because of that, they were given day and date release in China with the rest of the world. So which essentially is their technique of saying, look, if you do this, we'll release your movie the same time it goes in the rest of the world, and we'll guarantee a certain level of that it won't be basically pirated to a certain degree.
Okay.
Right? Because if it comes out of the United States, people pirate it, and then boom, China, boom, you lose a lot of money. Well, that helps it essentially be the highest grossing film of all time in their country, and one of the highest grossing films in our country as well. But what I thought was interesting was my first reaction to that is, well, that's kind of fucked up, right? That we have to, they're giving us the money, but then we have to, what do you got there? Ooh.
I wanted beer, so I ordered beer.
Just now?
Look at that.
Well, I ordered it online. Yeah, right.
Holy
before the show.
moly.
Cool. They didn't have Bud Light, so I got your craft Pilsner.
Oh my goodness.
And then I have
I'll be a
Racer
fancy
5.
lad tonight. All right,
Gorgeous.
let's do it.
So, I mean, all those, whether that's right or wrong doesn't matter, right? The question I have for you guys is, if they're funding the movie, do they have the right, is it right or wrong, rather, well, it's not right or wrong, but what's your perspective on them saying, look, we're funding the movie, we have the right to tell you kind of what goes into the movie or what doesn't go into the movie, otherwise it doesn't get released, right? And is it fair to say that if you are going to shoot the movie here, that we ask you to use Chinese actors?
I don't know if right or wrong is the word. I think it's business. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's them. Well, I guess not necessarily business if politics are involved too. You know.
Well, it's politics. I mean, the United States government is kind of looking into some of the acquisitions that the Wanda Group has made and seeing if it violates any sort of security regulations, but I don't think they found anything just yet.
But I mean, if it's going to help the movie studio make a ton more money in China by hiring more Chinese actors, well, which is good in its own right.
Sure.
And showing these different locations or shooting there, then I guess I'm failing to see the bad part, unless they start trying to put government propaganda or something in these movies.
Which is kind of what's happening, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not. I mean, that's the question. It's a gray area, right? If I said to you, yeah, hey, I want to give you money, you can come make this movie in my country, but it comes with these caveats. You can't really say anything bad about China. You can't really say anything.
This was the thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when we left Independence Day Resurgence, we were talking about this, right? And the fact
Yes.
that they had the Chinese woman pilot there.
Correct.
That they made a big deal about being, and it was like, America's awesome, but so is this Chinese woman pilot. You know what I mean? They made a big deal about that was I forget, it's been so long. There was something I remember we cued in out of that was weird. It was like, oh, well, did you see the opening credits that said.
It was Alibaba.
Yeah, exactly.
It was probably the Alibaba, one of the Alibaba, which is it's like a Viacom of China,
Right.
but they put out a lot of movies, they make a lot of movies, they co-finance a lot of
Yeah,
movies too. Which is, by the way, another political strategy they use, given that there's only 34 foreign films allowed in China, and it's opening up a little bit now, but one of the the workarounds around that is that you can co-produce with a Chinese company, and then boom, you can get your movie made, which I think is what TMNT and Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation and Star Trek Beyond did.
Do you say 30
Beyond
or
that was
40?
What's that?
Do you say 30 or 40?
34.
34. They have a specific number.
I think that's
for
what I
how
read in
many?
the article. I mean,
what a weird, arbitrary thing.
What's that? No, I think it's 34 foreign movies total. I could be wrong about that.
That seems
but
so
I think that's
arbitrary.
what it was.
Yeah.
Why 34?
Don't know.
So this to me is interesting because when you look at it, for example, what's the difference between this or sponsorship and product placement of anything, right?
Sure.
I feel like watching Transformers 4, it was distracting that it's like, now we're going to China and there's all this weird Chinese, the Chinese stuff stood out. Absolutely.
Sure.
The ATMs and that type of stuff. It's like them going to China, sure, fine. They need to go somewhere. But there was a lot of little things that it was just kind of it took you out of it and it made you kind of think about it. But I don't think that's that bad because I watched Doctor Strange last week and every time a Microsoft Surface Book was shown, it was it took me out of it in the same way where I'm like, there's the product placement, but it's like, I kind of think those things are equivalent in that it doesn't really matter. They needed a computer. They need to go somewhere. As long as these things are just, they're going to China because China's paying for it. Doesn't matter. They could have went to Africa, Japan. Who cares? They're going somewhere. But this stuff kind of turns into this worst case scenario where the finance then kind of dictates what they're doing. And that's true on the product placement side as well, though. They need a certain amount of computer scenes to get their worth out of it. So they're going to write more computer scenes in the movies, right? Like it does affect it in that way. But I think that this, because there is an actual political agenda on top of it, that's when it starts getting scary, because from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for them to do these partnerships, because why not? They need a movie to be made. Why not get in front of way more people, in front of an audience?
And
that
Hollywood
wants
is
that
getting
content.
behind this. It's not like that. No one's fighting this. Whatsoever.
Exactly, because there's no reason to. They're like, well, fine, we'll make these concessions because they don't give a shit. Like Independence Day is a perfect example. Like, who cares?
But that's the problem too, I feel, is the fact that I remember hearing about this, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago when this was starting to happen. And they were, the thing, I remember it must have been like 16 years or something to that effect, talking about the fact that what's big in China is not necessarily the plot, but the big effects, the big explosions. That's what, and that the concern is more movies would go that way. And that is the thing we're talking about, right? Where Transformers 4 is, I didn't see it, but I assumed Transformers 4 is Transformers 4, big explosions. Independence Day is nonsense and big explosions, right? Like I'm like, that sucked. I don't, you know what I mean? What the hell was that? But if it plays well international and makes all that money, why does it matter what the actual content of the movie is?
Yeah, I mean, that's for me too. Is like, again, I'm not here trying to pass judgment. Like Hollywood has historically always gone to where the money is, right? And the money always dictates the content. That's just the way it goes. The only thing I'm trying to grapple with internally is the idea of such extreme censorship and what that's inevitably going to do to our product, right?
Sure.
Which is a product that, film has been such a transformative medium for us. It's been such a great medium to getting like really profound, really important cultural messages out that otherwise wouldn't have the same impact. For instance, my wife's watching, it's not a film, it's a TV show, but my wife's watching Transgender right now, right? That is such an amazing piece of art that I did not expect to affect me the way it did, right? Obviously, with like Caitlyn Jenner, things like that, have brought transgendered people to sort of the public forefront.
Yeah.
But then sitting down and watching this and letting yourself be immersed in this narrative that is obviously fiction, but forms like gives you a personal bond to someone and what they're going through by doing so is a very, very powerful thing. And the fact that that's probably not going to be allowed ever in China means ultimately, as far as blockbusters are concerned, granted blockbusters haven't really tackled transgenderism.
That's the thing.
But there in Hollywood right now, there's the blockbuster and then there's the indie. There's no in between because no one's funding those in betweens, right? And those in betweens are the ones that like have the real possibility of making that big cultural impact, right? So it's very scary to look at that, and then also start to see this Chinese films bleed into the American market. And this is something I didn't realize until I looked this up. Is that the same group that's offering these subsidies owns AMC theaters, and so you're now starting to see all of the Chinese movies be marketed to the United States. Which is not necessarily a bad thing because I'm sure that there's plenty of great Chinese films out there. But the question then becomes, what is that going to do to our film industry in the coming years? And what does that say about us? If, for instance, Hollywood starts making Chinese films and are forced more and more to use Chinese actors and they're being shot in China, are they Hollywood films anymore?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing, what you're talking about here and why, okay, well, whatever, it's just these big blockbusters. Does it matter? Does it do this? Who cares if it's this thing? It's one of those, like, by the time it seeps in and Hollywood realizes how much money they can make on it, it changes the dynamic. And then eventually you're going to look around and be like, wait, where are all the jobs in terms of being a key grip or being a union guy here in the United States? And this is the same thing you've seen in every other industry, whether it's air conditioner fucking carrier, putting them out, right? Jobs leaving the state and going to Mexico. The fact that every CW superhero show, and this is a goofy example, but true, is shot in Vancouver, right? And it's one of those things of like, they're not going there because the locations are awesome. They are. Vancouver's great. I've been there. I love Vancouver. But they're going there because here's a giant tax incentive. And it's the normal thing of America bureaucracy and bullshit politics getting in the way of, we're not making it easy for you to be a business here. And it's what we've talked about before, right? Of like, Colin talks about it all the time once in a while when he gets really angry of like, we should have incorporated in Delaware. You know what I mean? Like, yep, we're a California company, but everybody incorporates in Delaware. They just fucking put on a dumb thing there because it's better there to get your business there to get less taxed. But we didn't do that. So, I looked
into it.
I know. Well, I know. We looked into it.
Not as cut and dry as
I'm aware, but I'm saying there are plenty. Look at a whole bunch of businesses, right?
Of course,
they file somewhere.
So
that's
better
where
to
you're from.
Have a business in Texas where there's no
exactly. Yeah. Exactly, and like that's the thing where it's like you keep putting the squeeze on people. You can't be mad when they leave, and that's where I've always been.
I think you could see a lot of big studios wanting to do this for the obvious money reasons, but there have to be. I would have to imagine that a lot of the big directors, like imagine like the Coen brothers or Paul Thomas Anderson, like they have creative vision and stuff, and they take a lot of authorship in that. I don't think they'd be willing to compromise that because of extra money coming in from China.
But the scary thing is, the blockbusters are what pay for the indies.
Right.
So when Warner Brothers is having a bad year, they hope to God they can get Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them out as soon as possible, because they know that Harry Potter franchise is going to basically fund that studio for the next couple of years, or next 5 years probably. And that gives them the ability to take the risks with Coen Brothers. I'm not to say the Coen Brothers movies don't make money. I have no idea if they do or not. But there have been lots of independent films made for, between the $2 and $20 million range that have made their money back and then some. But those are huge risks that movie studios are taking, which sounds counterintuitive because you would think a $300 million movie like Transformers is a huge risk, but it's not, because you've got that built-in audience. Lo and behold, in China.
I think this thing's a Transformer.
Oh my God, it's so. I mean, granted, I didn't see Transformers 4, but I heard it's high art.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
I mean, Transformers is a franchise, not the movies, but as a franchise in general, that's very near and dear to my heart, probably more so than anything else. Like, it's up there with Nintendo in terms of how much I love it. And the movies, I mean, they are what they are, and I can't really defend them, but I at least found them enjoyable.
Sure.
Age of Extinction was bad.
Is it the second one?
No, it's the fourth one.
Oh, that's the fourth one.
It was
okay.
real.
Oh, with the dinosaurs,
real
right?
bad. Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot
They
of
were
this stuff did
Dinobots,
kind
I
of
believe.
fall into
Sorry,
that shit.
sorry.
Like,
I wanted to go back to you mentioned Doctor Strange, right? And how we love that movie. Great movie. I think they did a great job with that. But there was an article I found about Doctor Strange that was saying that the reason Tilda Swinton's character, as sort of the Tibetan monk character, was changed to a nondescript white person was because of China's relation with Tibet. Like, it's not. That's what people are theorizing. I don't think that's ever been proven. But they said
that's the thing.
instead of making that person a specific ethnicity or nationality, they were like, let's just make the ancient one a bland. Now, that could also just be Hollywood whitewashing.
That's
which is
my
a whole
thing.
completely
I
other
think
story.
that
Ghost in the Shell.
those two things need to be looked at separately, because the politics and money are very different than the whole actor side of it and the whole decisions made based on.
Well, no, but those decisions are made. Like Scarlett Johansson's in Ghost in the Shell because she sells in China.
No,
like
exactly.
she sells overseas. So
Well, she sells, period.
she just sells, right? So and
Not
that's
toys, apparently.
And it makes sense. Another famous example of it, obviously, is actually probably the most famous example of it was when they did the remake of Red Dawn, and it was supposed to be the Chinese, and then China said, "No, we're not releasing this movie."
And they digitally took it.
and they digitally made them all North Koreans.
Oh, really? Like
which is why that
changed
movie
flags
is
and stuff?
completely fucking absurd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
To Colin hated that because he was like, "There's no fucking way North Korea could take over and hold the entire continent of the United States." He's like, "But China could." And of course, China could, but China doesn't want to be the bad guy anymore.
Huh? And they funded that movie?
No, they just said
They wouldn't let them
as
release
a
it over there,
theater
I think.
conglomerate, as the number
Oh.
2 biggest theater on the planet. You're not going to make your money back basically
Gotcha.
because this movie's not coming out in our country.
Yeah. I mean, that's it sucks, but I mean, the way I see it is what it is. They have the right to do that, but I feel like
Absolutely.
China has problems. You know what I mean?
Well, China definitely has
when
problems.
it comes to the movies side of it, it's just like that's on us, quote unquote, as Hollywood to figure out how to make sure that this doesn't affect us negatively in terms of the authorship of everything. But I feel like the guys like Michael Bay, they want the money. They want more explosions. They don't give a shit about who's in the movie, why they're in the movie.
Bad Boys
They
Four.
just want bigger explosions.
Yep.
And it's like, cool, and that's the shit that sells over there. But I think that you were talking about the divide, and we've talked about this so many times, but I think that the indies, Netflix and that type of stuff, that's the future of all of that. And that's where it's like that stuff's going to grow, and like we're going to
Sure.
get the people with the defined visions, and places like Patreon and all that are going to support people enough, and Kickstarter and crowdsourcing are going to give people the money needed to make things. And I think that right now we're still in the baby steps of that, because we're, even to make a low tier movie, it still costs millions
Yeah,
of
so you're
dollars.
looking at $2 to $3 million.
So it's like you're not making that off Patreon, but when we're seeing with all these like actors that make their Kickstarters and shit,
But that's a perfect example, right? But like, it all kind of breaks my heart in a way, simply because the more and more audiences go, well, that's like, they're gravitating more toward those experiences, and I say those, with love, because that's us, right? We're making content, we're asking the audience to subsidize that content. It's no different than what Netflix does. It's just we're not putting out Stranger Things yet.
Or are we?
Or are we? Are we the Duffer Brothers? Spoilers, we're not. But either way, that's still taking attention away from the theaters, right? The theater experience, the movie as we see, the spectacle of seeing it on an 80-foot screen is dying. And it is going overseas, and it is just...
And it's coming to Virgin America plane headsets.
At least United hasn't beat, because at least you can stream to a freaking iPad.
That's so much better?
It's way better than that little tiny fucking
Oh yeah.
SD
You're missing it
screen.
because you get to do this on the thing and look at it.
My favorite is when part of the screen is like blue and the other part's like pink. That's super fucking dope. Now you don't realize it, but they didn't color the movie like that. That's just because some
All
kid
I'm saying
kicked
is
the fucking back of the
United
seat
got
300 times.
scooped, and this is their fix. All right. When the internet's free, then tell me something about United and your planes are on time.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, I just wanted to put that topic in front of you guys, let you mull it over a little bit because it's of concern to me.
Okay. We'll check back in a year, see if
Unless
China's
China wants to
taking
give
over
me
everything.
money for a movie, in which case, what's up?
We'll come shoot GameOverGreggy show in China.
Fuck yeah, we will.
Yeah.
For $750 million,
Fuck yeah.
I'd kill Kevin, eat him,
You don't want to eat him.
then reconstitute him. You know what I mean?
Oh God damn. Ugh.